Today we are wrapping up our ACT practice essay prompt. Hopefully you guys have found these videos helpful and you'll continue to use them as you work through additional prompts, just to kind of use as a refresher and a tool as you're beginning your essays on your own. So today we're going to go over the conclusion. The conclusion and introduction are very similar in that they'll both be about 3 to 4 sentences in length. You'll want to have your thesis stated in both your introduction and your conclusion, and you'll still want to have kind of a transition sentence that leads in and leads out the essay. The only difference will be you're not going to repeat your thesis from the introduction. You're going to rephrase your thesis from the introduction. So I have typed out the thesis that we used in our introduction. The reliance on technology is hindering society in both the workforce and the way in which we communicate. We want to show ACT that we can rephrase our idea and have it still be the same. So a rephrasing of our initial thesis could be, technology in society has led to a decrease in communication skills and fewer people in the workforce. That is one way to rephrase this. I challenge you and your student to come up with your own thesis, your own rephrasing of the thesis for your conclusion. I'm going to use the one that I've typed out, but I challenge you guys to kind of come up with your own restating of the thesis. So now our conclusion. So our conclusion, I'm going to have a transition sentence. I'm not sure how you guys ended your last few body paragraphs to use that little trick to tie in kind of the same vocabulary. So I'm just going to write a generic conclusion since I'm not sure what you guys used, like I said, in your body paragraphs. So I'm going to kind of use a transition sentence, a sentence of additional information, just kind of like we did in our introduction, and then I'm going to end with our restating of our thesis. You might want to begin with the restating of your thesis. You might want to sandwich it in between your transition sentence and your additional information. It is whatever flows best with your essay, just as long as it's not too wordy. You don't want to restate your entire paper in the conclusion, and as long as you've rephrased your thesis, not copied it word for word. So a conclusion might be something like, there are many views on whether or not technology is helping or hindering society. Now notice I use hindering instead of hurting. I want to try to use some good vocabulary terms to just up the ante, if you will, on the essay writing, because we want to get that 10, 11, 12. We want to get in that range, and so part of that is going to be vocabulary. So there are many views on whether or not technology is helping or hindering society. I've kind of restated what our paper was over. Technology does have its advantages, but it also comes with an impact that potentially has long-lasting repercussions. So I have my lead-in sentence, I have some additional information, and now I'm going to restate that thesis. So technology in society has led to a decrease in communication skills and fewer people in the workforce. So that is my conclusion, and that is a fine conclusion, 3 to 4 sentences, because again, you only have 40 minutes to write this essay. That's an introduction, that's your few body paragraphs, and your conclusion. We want to have about 5 minutes of pre-writing where your student kind of decides what perspective they want to take and a few ideas of what they want to talk about for their perspective, and then also some of those counter arguments where they're introducing what the other side might say, and then again turning it back around to where it's their perspective is right. So that's kind of what they'll use those 5 minutes for. Then they want to spend about 30 minutes writing, which if you have just a traditional 5 paragraphs, it's about 6 minutes per paragraph, which sounds like a lot of time, but it's not going to be in the moment because your students are probably going to get hung up on some sort of, writer's block, or, potentially somebody's tapping a pencil that's distracting. They're going to get hung up on the spelling of a word, the grammar of a word, of a sentence, some vocabulary, something like that. So 6 minutes per paragraph, and then that leads to about 5 minutes to go back and edit, look for grammar, look for spelling, look for the redundancies. So if you continuously use the same word over and over and over again, you want to maybe look for a different way to say it. So if I've used hindering every other sentence, I'm probably going to need to go back through and rewrite some of those other sentences, because we also don't want ACT to think that we only know one word and that's it, and it's just going to be, because that in itself turns into a crutch for us as writers. So we want to make sure that we're using a variety of vocabulary terms, a variety of structure to get our points across. So if your student has 5 minutes, is at the 5-minute call, and they're on their last body paragraph conclusion, they are on track. They should not rush. They should go ahead and finish out their thoughts and ideas, and then just with whatever time is left, go back and look at those grammar, spelling issues that they might have. If your student is on the second body paragraph and they're planning on having a third plus the conclusion, they need to start kind of wrapping up that paragraph that they're on very quickly, then writing just 2 or 3 sentences for the remaining 2 paragraphs, and then going through, if they have time left, going back through and expanding on their ideas in those shorter paragraphs. If your student is still on the introduction or the first paragraph when the 5 minutes is called, they need to very, very quickly, but still making sure that spelling is there, write 2 body paragraphs, bare bones, just showing that they understand their perspective, that they understand that there's another perspective, restate the thesis as the conclusion, maybe one other sentence as kind of a lead out sentence, and then in whatever time they have left, going back through and adding additional information. We don't want students to have time called before they get to their conclusion or before they're finished with one of their body paragraphs. We want to be able to set them up for success, and that success in this ACT prompt is finishing. So we want them to finish out their ideas, and it's okay if it's only 2 or 3 sentences and it doesn't have a ton of detail. We've at least shown that we understand that there are other perspectives, we understand our own perspective, and we have concluded this essay. Ideally, though, we have practiced and practiced and practiced timed ACT writing prompts all spring, that by the time the ACT comes around, they are pros at it, they have additional time, they're comfortable, they know how to look for the question in the prompt, they know how to use the information in the prompt to write their body paragraphs, and they're comfortable with restating their thesis in that conclusion. So ideally, with as much practice as possible, your students walk into that writing portion of the ACT score 10, 11, or 12 because they have practiced that much. The folder that is attached in the on the writing page of the ACT Coach website has several prompts for them to use. So we use the intelligent machines to write this essay. There are at least 7 or 8 others that you'll be able to use throughout the school year to have your student practice. Good luck.